Well, hey there, friends. I'm your host, Penny, and this is Criminally Nerdy. How's everybody doing? I am doing pretty darn good right now. I record these on the weekend and they come out on Monday. So, there's a little bit of a time lag between, when I'm recording and when you guys hear it. So, I just got to go to dinner to celebrate my parents' 40th anniversary, which is super awesome. It sadly reminds me that I am nearing my 40th anniversary of life. I don't need any reminders for that, but hey. So, yeah, happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. Fun fact about my mom and dad, they met at the Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you know what that is, you now know everything you need to know about me and why I am the way I am. This episode is coming out on Eclipse Day. I hope you all have good viewing for it. Public service announcement. Do not take home any strange-looking plants that happen to appear during the eclipse, unless you want something that will make you rich and famous and bring you closer to the one you love and eat your enemies, but ultimately try to ruin your life. You know what? Fuck it. Grab the plant. Take the risk. You know it's planned. You can get ahead of it. Take that, Audrey, too. Another fun fact, this episode is also being released on Rex Manning Day. That's right, nerds. In honor of Kurt Cobain, who passed away on April 8th, 1994, the filmmakers of Empire Records declared to the world that today is Rex Manning Day. I make zero apologies for how many Empire Records quotes will appear during this episode. Damn the man. Save the Empire. You all had a really awesome response to the sticker giveaway. If you've already gotten yours, please post a picture and tag the podcast. I want to see them stickies. Since you guys seem to like them so much, I'm going to give away 10 more. Get them while they're hot. Get them while they're hot. Email your address to criminallynerdypodcast@gmail.com and I'll get one out to you. Don't worry, I won't be stalking anyone. I am far too lazy for all that. I mean, unless you want me to. Also, I just want to say thanks to everyone who keeps spreading the word. It means the world to me. I am doing the best to get the word out myself. Hello, everyone from Britain. If you saw me there, no, you didn't. Look, I don't get out much, okay? But I'm only one person, so you guys telling fellow nerds is helping tremendously. And the more people who are listening, the more cool things I can do. Like maybe some more stickers. Yes, I know I have a sticker problem. I go to meetings. It's whatever. The case I have for you today is that of Charles Whitman, the Texas Tower sniper, one of America's worst mass shootings, and the first to unfold live in the media. This case was recommended to me by one of my best friends, Lisa Moss. Some of my sources for this episode were the 2016 documentary Tower, directed by Keith Maitland, TexasStandard.org, BehindTheTower.org, and Britannica.com. True Crime Garage Podcast also did a great episode on Charles Whitman if you want to check that out. It was a particularly hot day on August 1st, 1996 in Austin, Texas, when 8-month pregnant Claire Wilson and her boyfriend, Thomas Ekman, were leaving the student union at the University of Texas, Austin, when all of a sudden, shots rang out. They didn't even realize what was happening when they both fell to the ground. Thomas had been shot in the chest, Claire in the stomach. A passerby actually told them to get up off the ground, assuming that they were taking part in some sort of protest. Shots continued to rain down and bodies started dropping. In the mass confusion on campus, people realized that there was a shooter in the main building. Everyone began to take cover and no one could get to those who had been injured without becoming a target themselves, so the wounded laid where they fell. One person was able to get close to Claire. A woman came and laid next to her and attempted to keep her calm until help could get to her. Tragically, Claire's unborn son and her boyfriend did not make it, and sadly, they were far from the only victims of Charles Whitman that day. What's with today? Charles Whitman was born on June 24, 1941 in Lake Worth, Florida. He was the oldest of 3 sons born to Margaret and Charles Whitman, Jr. Whitman's father was reported to have been very authoritative, demanding near perfection from everyone around him. Like, dude, no, that doesn't happen with kids or human beings. He was known to be physically and emotionally abusive to his wife and children. That's not a recipe for disaster or anything. Charles was an intelligent child with a reported IQ of 139 at the age of 6, which I'm like, damn, I didn't even know they could measure someone's IQ at the age of 6, and I have kids over the age of 6. Have their IQs been tested? I should look into that. He joined the Boy Scouts at age 11 and became an Eagle Scout at age 12, which is the youngest Eagle Scout at that time. He was also an accomplished pianist and excellent marksman due to his father being a firearms collector and kind of enthusiast, so he insisted on teaching all of his sons how to shoot, clean, and maintain weapons. 1 month after graduating high school, Whitman enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps without telling his father. He told friends the reason he did this was because his father had beaten him up and thrown him into the family swimming pool for coming home drunk. Healthy reaction there, Pops. When his father found out about the enlistment, he called and tried to have the federal government cancel it. That's not how it works, my dude. During his service, he did earn the sharpshooter's badge, but he was not a sniper, as many reports would claim after the Texas shooting. He scored highly on some required exams, so a selection committee actually awarded him a scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin to study mechanical engineering. But apparently he wasn't a very good student in college. He found himself getting in trouble, which isn't that crazy to hear about from a college kid. But his outbursts got progressively worse. He was once caught poaching a deer and butchering it in a dormitory shower. I really hope whenever he got caught, he screamed, "I don't need to explain my art to you, Warren." Friends also remember him making comments about the tower, saying a person could stand off an army up there before they got to him. That's just about the most morbid foreshadowing I can think of. He met his wife Kathleen in February of 1962, and the two moved at lesbian speed because they were married that same August. They were married on his parents' 22nd anniversary. His grades at school did begin to improve, but the Marines still felt they were insufficient to continue his scholarship, so he was ordered to return to active duty for the remainder of his 5-year enlistment. He was not happy about this and began to really lash out. He was court-martialed for gambling, usury, which is giving loans that had such a high interest rate they couldn't be paid back, possession of a personal firearm on base, and threatening another Marine over an unpaid loan. Shock me with that deviant behavior. These shenanigans landed him being sentenced to 30 days of confinement, 90 days of hard labor, and a demotion from Lance Corporal, which is an E3, to Private, which is an E1. The long arm of the law has embraced our dear friend Whitman. Whitman's mother eventually decided to divorce her abusive-ass husband, and she moved to Austin in 1966 to be closer to her son. Whitman's younger brother, John, also moved to Austin, while the middle brother, Patrick, stayed in Florida to work with their father. Around this time, Whitman began abusing amphetamines and started having tremendous headaches. He saw several doctors and was at one time prescribed Valium. He saw a psychiatrist who said, quote, "This massive muscular youth seemed to be oozing with hostility that seemed to be happening to him and that he didn't seem to be himself. He readily admits having overwhelming periods of hostility with a very minimum of provocation. Repeated inquiries attempting to analyze the exact experiences were not too successful, with the exception of his vivid reference of going up to the tower with a deer rifle to start shooting people." End quote. Just right there. Bro, he told you his fucking plan and you did nothing. Nothing. I hope that motherfucker lost his license. Oh, I hope you're gluing quarters to a floor somewhere. At 6:45 p.m. on July 31st, 1966, 25-year-old Charles Whitman began typing a suicide note. Among many things, he wrote, quote, "I do not really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable, and intelligent young man. However, lately, I cannot recall when it started, I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts. After one session, I never saw the doctor again, and since then, I've been fighting my mental turmoil alone and seemingly to no avail. After my death, I wish that an autopsy would be performed on me to see if there is any visible physical disorder." Sometime after midnight, Whitman went to his mother, 43-year-old Margaret Whitman's apartment, and stabbed her to death. He then returned home and killed his wife, 23-year-old Kathleen Whitman, by stabbing her in the chest 5 times while she slept. Next to his mother, Whitman left a handwritten note. "To whom it may concern, I have just taken my mother's life. I am very upset over having done it. However, I feel that there is a heaven, and she is definitely there now. I am truly sorry. Let there be no doubt in your mind that I love this woman with all of my heart." He did mention his wife and mother in his suicide note, saying, "I don't want her to have to face the embarrassment my actions would surely cause her. I truly do not consider this world worth living in, and am prepared to die, and do not want to leave her to suffer alone in it. Similar reasons provoked me to take my mother's life. I imagine it appears that I brutally killed both of my loved ones. I was only trying to do a quick, thorough job. If my life insurance policy is valid, please pay off my debts. Donate the rest anonymously to a mental health foundation. Maybe research can prevent further tragedies of this type. Give our dog to my in-laws. Tell them Kathy loves Scotchy very much. If you can find it in yourself to grant my last wish, cremate me after the autopsy. Around 11:30 the next day, August 1st, 1966, Whitman went to the UT Austin campus and falsely identified himself as a research assistant who was there to deliver equipment. What he actually had was a footlocker that he had packed with a massive amount of ammunition, several weapons including an M1 carbine, a hunting rifle, a sawed-off shotgun, several pistols, a machete, and knives, along with other supplies that included enough food and bottled water to last for 2 weeks, dexedrine, which is an amphetamine, excedrin, deodorant, and a transistor radio. Killing 3 people along the way, he made it to the observation deck of the tower and barricaded himself in. He then spread guns around the deck and began shooting. He terrorized a 5-block radius, firing indiscriminately from all angles. This attack lasted an agonizing 96 minutes. That is 2 minutes longer than Little Shop of Horrors, and 6 minutes longer than Empire Records. Finally, officers Ramiro Martinez and Houston McCoy were able to get to, shoot, and kill Whitman. There were officers and civilians on the street who had been shooting up at the tower in an attempt to disarm or, kill Whitman to make this shooting stop. After McCoy and Martinez had killed him, the other people on the ground had no idea that the shooter was dead, so they kept firing up at the tower. One officer was actually shot in the confusion, but was only mildly injured. Finally, a white flag began to wave from the tower and the shooting ceased. Folks on the ground had gotten the message. The shooting was over, but the horror was just beginning. Civilians and medical professionals rushed to aid those who'd been shot. Many were already dead. Some were severely injured. A massive effort took place to get everyone off of the hot ground where some, like Claire, had been laying on the burning cement for over an hour and a half. They were taken to nearby hospitals and treated. For those who were not killed, the physical injuries ranged obviously from serious to minor, but mentally, the events of that day would be with them for the rest of their lives. Whitman's autopsy was conducted by Coleman de Chenard, a neuropathologist at Austin State Hospital on August 2nd. Whitman was found to have a pecan-sized tumor in his brain that was labeled an astrocytoma with a small amount of necrosis. At that time, medical professionals said it would not have influenced his behavior during the shooting. But Texas Governor John Connally was not satisfied with that. He wanted to dig deep, so he created a 32-person committee to study the findings of Whitman's autopsy. He really wanted to try to understand the motives and actions of Charles Whitman on that day and see if there was anything that they could do to prevent this from happening again. The Connolly Commission contradicted the initial autopsy, saying that the tumor was actually a glioblastoma, which may have contributed to Whitman's inability to control his emotions and actions. The committee's official report was decidedly inconclusive. Forensic investigators also theorized that Whitman's tumor was likely pressing against the amygdala, which could have influenced the fight-or-flight response. In looking for other explanations for Whitman's actions, it cannot be ignored that along with the tumor and mental health issues, he was habitually abusing amphetamines. I wouldn't let someone with that combination have a spoon, let alone a weapon. Including his wife and mother, Charles Whitman killed 17 people and injured 31. The victims of the University of Texas Tower shootings were Edna Elizabeth Townsley, 51 years old. She was the receptionist in the observation deck. She was hit over the head with a rifle and then shot in the head. Mark Jerome Gabor, 16. He was a tourist. He was shot in the head as Whitman attempted to navigate his way up to the observation deck. Marguerite Lamport, 54, also a tourist, shot by Whitman as she was making her way up the stairs near the observation deck. Thomas Frederick Ekman, freshman at University of Texas. shot by Whitman in the chest as he was leaving the student union. Dr. Robert Hamilton Boyer, 33, mathematician. He was shot in the lower back. He was only days away from relocating to England, where he had just accepted a teaching position at the University of Liverpool. Karen Joan Griffith, 17 years old. She was actually a high school student, and she was one of Charles's wife Kathleen's biology students. She was shot in the shoulder and chest, piercing her right lung, and passed away 7 days after the shooting. Thomas Ray Carr, 24. He was a senior. He was walking towards his apartment after a Spanish exam when he was shot in the spine while attempting to assist Karen Griffith. Thomas Aquinas Ashton, 22 years old. He was a student and a Peace Corps volunteer. He was killed while walking to meet fellow Peace Corps volunteers at the student union. He was shot once in the chest. Paul Bolton Sontag, 18 years old. He and his girlfriend, Claudia Rutt, had taken refuge behind a construction barricade when the gunfire had started. At one point, Paul apparently stood up abruptly. Whitman shot him in the mouth, killing him instantly. Tragically, Paul's grandfather was the news director for KTBC. He learned of his grandson and namesake's death as the victims' names were recited on air that day. Claudia Marilyn Rutt, 18. She was shot in the chest seconds after seeing her boyfriend Paul shot in the mouth as she was attempting to go to his aid. Harry Walchuk, 36 years old. Harry was a PhD student and a father to 6 children. He was shot in the chest while leaving a magazine store. Officer Billy Paul Speed, 23 years old. He was an Austin police officer who had responded when the call went out about the shooter on campus. Roy Dell Schmidt, 29, electrician. He had taken cover with several other individuals some 500 yards away from the tower. After about 30 minutes of the shooting, Schmidt stood up thinking that he was far enough out of range. He was almost immediately shot in the abdomen. His death was the furthest fatality from the tower. David Hubert Gunby, 23. He was the longest living survivor. An engineering student, he was shot in the upper left arm. The bullet then entered his abdomen, severing his small intestine. During surgery, it was discovered that he only had one functioning kidney to begin with, and it was now severely damaged. He was in great pain for the rest of his life and had to be kept on dialysis permanently. He died in 2001 at the age of 58, 1 week after deciding to discontinue dialysis. This was a result of his health having deteriorated to the point where he was largely bedridden. His death was officially ruled a homicide, making him the 17th victim. Following the shooting, the tower's observation deck was closed to the public until 1968. It was then closed again in 1975 following several suicides, and did not reopen again until 1999, when it could only be visited through guided tours. In 1999, the Tower Garden, which honors, quote, all those whose lives were touched by the shooting tragedy, was established on a tree-covered site north of the tower. A bronze plaque embedded in a rock was added in 2007. A 6-foot-tall granite memorial with the names of those who passed away that day was constructed to mark the 50th anniversary of the shooting in 2016. The aftermath of this crime cannot be overstated. At a time where an active shooter was something that was completely unheard of, it had a significant impact on police procedures across the nation. After this event, Special Weapons and Tactics, SWAT, teams were formed across the country. On-the-scene media coverage became far more prominent because of Neil Spels, news director and anchor for KTBC, who was only blocks away from the tower. He hid behind the station's vehicle and reported on the events in real time, also warning listeners to stay clear of the area. It also started many discussions about the role mental health plays in violent behavior, what the warning signs are, and how tragedies like this could be prevented. In fact, the Connolly Committee recommended that, quote, the University of Texas should have the best possible health programs in the broadest meaning of the term for both students and faculty, with mental health being paramount. For the university student undergoing one of the most stressful periods of his development, a mental health program is considered vital, not only through implementation of known practices, but also through ongoing research and application of new knowledge. There is no more fitting memorial to those who suffered from this tragic event, and no more worthwhile effort than to anticipate and prevent similar catastrophes can be conceived. End quote. I think the most heartbreaking part of this case is that it was entirely preventable. He sought help. He tried. Yes, he is a monster. He's a fucking monster for what he did to those innocent people. But I can't stop thinking about how if just one person along the way did something, that monster wouldn't have been able to carry out his sinister plan. If one friend took his comments about the tower seriously to authorities and said, hey, this guy needs to be looked at. If one doctor had said, hey, we need to put this guy away and treat him before he can act on these thoughts. Like, if one person had done something, this could have been avoided. But we mustn't dwell. No, not today. We can't. Not on Rex Manning Day. This one I can actually end on a bit of an upper because after watching the documentary, I saw that the woman who tragically lost her unborn child later in life adopted a son, and they are just over the moon in love. She's a great mom, and it seems like he's a great little guy. So that's pretty awesome. All right, guys, let's see what tarot has for me today. The Five of Pentacles, okay. The reversed Five of Pentacles means some change is coming. It can mean the worst is behind you, but don't expect changes to happen overnight. It will take some time before you recover and find strength once again. Slow recovery from illness can be indicated by the Five of Pentacles reversed as well. You will be able to find treatment that can lead to recovery. If you care for someone, then it can mean that you will get some help, whether financial or practical assistance. I'm already in treatment for my sticker problem. In the immortal words of Gina, do you think this story is already written? Or do you think that a bold and courageous act can change the course of history? Okay, that's the last one. That is the last Empire Records quote, I promise. All right, that's it for today, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Don't forget to send me those addresses if you'd like a sticker. If you're liking the podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Also, please tell your friends, tell your family, or anyone you know who's a true crime nerd like us. Word of mouth really is the lifeblood of a podcast, so please tell everyone you know. Be weird, be annoying about it. I am. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Criminally Nerdy Podcast, Twitter, X, whatever, at Crime Nerd Pod, or, of course, anytime you can shoot me an email, criminallynerdypodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, keep it nerdy.